Nowadays, it is irrelevant to say, पढ़ोगे लिखोगे बनोगे नवाब, खेलोगे कूदोगे बनोगे खराब. पढ़ाई जरूरी है, लेकिन खेलना कूदना भी जरूरी है. As India has ascended to a position of a global leader on multiple fronts, we have also exerted our presence in the world of sports and games. Today, we boast of some of the finest sports infrastructure across the country, which has been inspired by the successes and laurels that our eminent sports persons and athletes have brought to us. Far more important, however, than the laurels has been the values they have exemplified as human beings. The stories of their grit, determination, discipline, and self belief echo all the positive qualities we inspire our students to imbibe. We are privileged to have here today two eminent sports personalities who not only brought us global recognition and fame, but have, in their own ways, continued to contribute to the world of sports even outside the court or beyond the boundary ropes. It is our proud privilege to have with us today Padma Bhushan, Padma Shri, Khel Ratna, Pullela Gopichand, the only athlete to have received both the Arjuna Award as well as the Dronacharya Award. He definitely needs no introduction, but before I call upon him to address the gathering, can we please have the introductory video?
Padma Bhushan Pullela Gopichand won the prestigious All England Badminton Championship in 2001. He represented India in the Asian Badminton Championship in 1996. He was a gold medalist in the SAARC Games. In the same year, he represented India in the Thomas Cup in China. He was awarded Best Sportsperson of the Year in 2001. He reached the pinnacle of his career when he won the All England Badminton Championship at Birmingham. He was honoured with the Arjuna Award in 2000, the Dronacharya Award in 2009, and the Padma Bhushan in 2014.
Gopichand sir, it is an honor to have you amongst us today. Firstly, thank you so much for making time out of your busy schedule and being with us here today. I would now request you to please address the audience. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to talk to so many principals and also to be part of this event, which has sports for character building as a primary focus. I think for too long, we've been speaking about education and literacy in a very verbal sense, as in we talk about alphabetical literacy, we talk about numerical literacy, but in some sense, if walking, running, jumping, throwing, catching, sliding, diving, swimming, in some sequence is supposed to be physical literacy, then in the last few years, we as a country have grown numerically and alphabetically, but we as a country have come down physically. I think this is clear, and I think everybody will agree to this. For me, I think when we talk about sport, people talk about determination, dedication, hard work, and sacrifice, and a lot of things. But for me, I think let's not even look at sport from that angle. When I look at sport, and I'm sure what I'm talking now is something which everybody knows, but since I'm here anyway, I'm speaking. But I'm sure many of you know that sport is very, very important. But think of not organized sport, just let us look at unorganized sport. Imagine you were to give a holiday or you were to give a class off, a period off to the students, and 30 odd kids are going outside in the ground to play something. What does it require? It requires that each one of them starts to communicate with each other, starts to think, which game should I play? Somebody is going to propose something, somebody is going to counter propose something, and eventually they come out and say that we'll all together agree to play a certain game. And that compromise is, I think, very, very important. The ability to communicate, the ability to learn, the ability to accept a choice of the team or the group, even if I am not the one who's actually proposing it, is a big quality which gives, and this is unorganized sport. I'm not even talking about professional sport or amateur sport done systematically. This is just general kids playing. And this is not playing football or cricket or hockey or badminton, which need infrastructure. But I'm saying playing things like chore police or hide and seek and seven stones. And these are the games, and people can learn so much. And imagine who teaches them. As a kid in second class or third class comes up and he has to learn. They learn to watch, they learn to imitate, and they learn to play. That's a big aspect of learning. Today, for everything to learn, we tend to look at where is my coach? Where is my teacher? Who's going to teach me? But I think the power of observation, the power to imitate, and the power to emulate is something which is very, very critical. And this is learned by sport. There's also something which is very important: pressure and losing. How many times do we in actual life fail when we are young? We might write exams. Many a times, even if we fail, the school may not advertise it as this is guy is a failure. They just pass it to the next class and say you can write your lag subjects later in September. Or they might just give him extra classes and somehow manage to clear those exams immediately. But nobody is showing that the kid has failed. Only time actually children fail is in sport. And to actually imagine that a kid is actually failing in front of people, what kind of confidence it gives if the same kid comes back and wins the next time. I think one of our biggest challenges in today's life is not about the quality of life or what you have lost. It's about the fact that we are not ready to accept defeat. And imagine how many rich kids come to school, or a politician's kid, or somebody who's powerful in business or bureaucracy. And if you're the kid of a privileged class, you will never lose in life till a certain point to anybody who's less privileged. And imagine sport when a kid from a slum comes and beats the guy who walks in from a car or a Mercedes. And then this guy starts off at the start point and then he beats him fair and square. This is when people learn about defeat. And I think learning about defeat early in life actually makes them so much better, because sport is, as much as we want to say about champions, but it is about people who've conquered failure. I think that aspect of sport is something which is very, very important. For all of us, we can talk about many things which education gives. But think about it. When we are playing, say, a football match, in your mind, you're running and you see another 10 people around you, the goalkeeper on the other side, and you're actually in your mind saying, where are the threats coming from? Where are the threats coming from? Is he behind me, in front of me, in the side? What are their strengths? And imagine in that fraction of a second, you need to figure out what your strengths are, what the opposition's strengths are, where the opposition threats are coming, where your friends are, whom you can trust, and you have to pass the ball. How much of it is it like this in life, where every moment you're aware of what's happening? You're alert about what's happening. You're aware and alert about what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, where your friends are, and where your opposition is, and how you can maneuver out of it. And that is learned in the football field. If you play football, if you play cricket, if you play badminton, you will know that if you don't pass the ball to your friends, you will not be taken in the team the next day. Life learns, sport makes you life lessons so quickly that if you don't help and be with your partners, if you don't help and take them along, you're going to be punished severely. And this is learned from sport very early on. I think sport has huge benefits, whether it's talking about failure, talking about learning, talking about understanding, or the basics of sport, which is discipline, hard work, dedication, all of these. But I think one of the also I would all want you to reflect on is the fact that is it the medal which makes you a champion? Because the reality of sport is that more than 95 to 98% of the people actually lose, are a failure in sport. If you look at medals as a judge for success. And today we need to redefine the word success, because unless you win in sport or win a medal in sport, you're not a success. But imagine this, the very process of you trying to win, trying to play, trying to push yourself is itself a success. Whether you win a medal or not, whether you're a medalist or not, it doesn't really matter. The reality is the very participation itself makes you a champion. And I think that is very, very critical. We are not playing sport to be champions. We are aspiring to be champions. We want to be champions. But the benefit of sport is actually by playing sport itself, not necessarily by winning in sport. I think that needs to be emphasized and looked at a lot more clearly. For a very long time, we've looked at sport very differently. We have looked at sport from the fact that will this kid win? And always the best kids in class who get selected in the team, who are part of winning, are always enjoying the sport. That makes it, and reflect on it. Even in our school, maybe in the class, the 5 kids who are selected in the team, the 10 who are playing for the school, they're all superheroes. They love sport. They're always wanting to play sport. It's not about the people who are playing sport. I urge you all to take this question about what about the kids who are not playing sport? It's not the first in class who is important, but actually the way in which the last in class plays sport. That is important. Is the last person in class having a positive outlook out for sport? Is he enjoying the sports class? Is what we have to ask. Is the last 5 people in the class enjoying the sports class? I think that is what the question we need to ask. We need to reverse this model of sport wherein only the top 5 are enjoying sport. No, I think we need to ensure that the last 5 in class also are enjoying sport. For me, sport is very critical. I don't know how many things in of what we've learned in our school are actually beneficial to us in life, but I'm sure the life lessons which are learned in sport are definitely more useful in sport in life. So I request all of you to actually have a look at this and ensure that kids play, and it doesn't have to be organized sport. It can be unorganized sport, as simple things as hide and seek, chore police, running. All of these things are very, very critical for sport. The one last question I would say is, um, we want all our kids to be visionaries. How many kids in today's day and age have run as far as they can without somebody shouting, don't run, jumping as high as they can without somebody saying, don't, you will fall, or somebody throwing a ball as high where they say, oh, ball goom jayega. So I think if a person doesn't explore the boundaries of his physical being, how can he even be a visionary on the mental side? I think it is very critical that we invest in sport, not necessarily to be champions. There is definitely a benefit to be a champion, but there is a lot more benefit to undergo the process of becoming a champion. I think that is what where I would end this. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best. And I hope that each one of you have a healthy and a happy year ahead. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Gopi Chand sir, for that wonderful address. And if I had to just conclude few takeaways from what you said for the audience, it's beautiful how you said, I think this is going to stay with the audience, that how we need to ensure that the last five in class are enjoying sports and not just the first five. And also how you spoke about how life lessons can be taught through sports, and how unorganized sports can be introduced in the curriculum. I would like to thank you again for this session, and I would also request you to wait until the end of session. Time permitting, we will definitely take up few questions if the audience has. With this, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce the next guest, the next speaker for this session. In a country of 1.3 billion people, to make it to the top 11 cricketers is a feat in and of itself. And then to be considered as one of India's best wicketkeeper batsmen is a dream that many see and very few get to live. Today, we are honored to have with us Syed Sabah Kareem. Sir Sabah Kareem left an indelible impression on cricket fans during his playing days and continues to inspire generations of young cricketers. Before I invite Sir to address the gathering, let's have a look at the introduction video.
Syed Sabah Kareem is a former Indian cricketer. He was a right-handed batsman and a wicket-keeper. Kareem started his first-class career for Bihar in 1982-83 at the age of 15. Immediately after finishing his schooling at St. Xavier's High School, Patna, his career best score was 234 against Orissa in the 1990-91 Ranji Trophy. He was first picked for India as a replacement for Nayan Mongia in the Standard Bank Series in South Africa in 1996-97, and he performed well with the bat when he scored 55 on debut and a 38 in the next match. However, his next 8 innings saw him make 49 runs. In his first-class and international cricket career, Kareem scored a total of 7,687 runs, took 271 catches, and had 58 stumpings. While his career was halted by an eye injury while keeping for India against Bangladesh in May 2000, he is regarded as one of the finest wicketkeeper batsmen to have played for India.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my privilege to call upon Syed Sabah Kareem, former Indian cricketer, to address the gathering. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, and thanks a lot for such a warm introduction. It was good to learn more about myself during my playing career. But good afternoon to all those people who have joined in, and I hope that all of us can have an enjoyable session. I briefly got the gist of what Gopichan spoke about. It was wonderful to have him around as well. He talked about the life lessons that sports teaches youngsters. So let me start on a different note altogether. Let me talk about my own experience when I started playing and how I got into this game and the kind of support I received. And then I'll take all of you to some of my experiences that I've had with some of the stalwarts who has played this wonderful game that is cricket. And I think at the end of the session, we can have a freewheeling chat. You can ask me questions and I'll be more than happy to answer. So as you could see the introduction, I started quite early at the age of 14 or 15. I come from Patna, that is my hometown. And those days, to think of playing leave aside for the nation, but even to think of playing for your state, that is Bihar, was kind of unthinkable. One would not even dream of, because very few cricketers from that particular district or town had ever made it to the state side. And in my family, I didn't have it, neither from my paternal side or from my maternal side, ever had any sportsman of note. So all of them very interested in sports, particularly cricket, but none of them had taken up this sport as a profession or have been active in this particular sport. So I come from that kind of a background. However, I was very fortunate that my father was very keen that we should pursue any sport, whatever we like. And because he was very keen on cricket, that is how I got into this game also. And I remember growing up, listening to radio commentary, which was always be tuned on because of my dad. He was very keen, listener to radio commentary those days. So that's the kind of childhood I've had. And then, so I was the youngest in my family. My two brothers, elder to me, they were also, keen cricketers. So all three of us would go to the local ground, as it happens in most of the household. So we would go to the nearby, college ground to play after school hours, and I really got into it like that. But the reason why I bring this example forward is because in 5th standard I joined St. Xavier's School, Patna, which was a missionary school, and that's where my entire cricket career, so to speak, took in a different turn altogether. And I was very fortunate, and I was blessed that I had a principal of that school, Father George Thana. God bless him, he's still alive. He's still very, very, very active, and he's one strong, promoter of sport even now. And why I bring this in front of all of you, this example, is that all of you are the heads of your respective schools, and it's very important that an individual or a youngster who's keen on any sport gets the right kind of support from the head of the institute. So as it happened, I started playing. But those days we had a calendar year which would start in January, finish in December. If you recall those days, I'm talking about 70s and 80s. And in my case, when I started to play for my school, and then I graduated to play from my district and for my state, which is Bihar, at the under 15 level, at the under 19 level, invariably the so-called BCCI official matches or the tournaments that I'm talking about would clash with the final exams of the school. And I remember so well that Father George Thana, who was the principal of St. David of my school, I was in 7th when I was selected to play for the state team, Bihar under 15. So I went up to him with an application that, Father, because of my tournament coming up, I would like to seek leave. And he said, oh my God, you will have to miss your final exams then. So I said, well, if you can just allow me, because this is such an important phase of my career. I've just started off and I got selected. So you wouldn't believe this, but I'm talking about 78, 79, 80. Father George Thana, the principal, he said, no, okay, go ahead and play. Don't worry about the final exams. Once you come back, we'll have a look at it. But please ensure that you do well in these matches. So from 7th till the 10th, I never took my final exams because invariably it would clash with my tournaments. But fortunately, because I had a principal like Father George Thana, who allowed me to play, who allowed me to participate in these tournaments, that really kickstarted my career. So I would go back to school after my tournament was over, and then he would take special examinations. But he ensured that I was promoted. He ensured that I was allowed to play cricket. I was allowed to participate, and that really helped me to forge my career, which carried on, and that is how I managed to play cricket at the international level also. So just imagine if I didn't have a head of an institute like Father George Thana, I don't think I would have ever made that kind of a grade. So I start on this note, since all of you are head of your particular institutes, it's very important to observe, to identify the right kind of talent, to observe them, and to promote such kind of talent, so that they're able to fulfill their own ambitions. Now, in addition to this, when we talked about the kind of life skills that sports teaches us, I'll stick to my domain, which is cricket, and we can actually categorize them in two areas. One is tangible, which can be measurable, and the other are the intangibles. So when I talk about tangibles, if a youngster or if a school student gets into sport, what are the tangible gains or benefits which an individual can get out of sports? Number one is the fitness levels. These are all measurables. Fitness levels really goes up. You can see the difference in the individual's fitness routine. You can see, in terms of health benefits, that individual scores on so many levels. And there are certain ways of measuring all these health parameters. We have the so-called fitness test. We have those the health parameters which can be checked on a regular basis. Number three is discipline. Now, I do understand that when a student goes to a school, he in any case invariably learns all kinds of nuances of discipline. But when I talk about discipline in sports, it teaches you a different kind of a routine altogether, because not only while you are participating in active sport, but also when you are trying to prepare, you need to be disciplined. You have to follow a certain routine. You have to maybe get up in the morning, do your training, go to school, come back from school, go for your practice, and get back to your house and do your homework, and then go to sleep. That's the kind of routine a player has to follow. So that's another measurable thing which you can identify with. Number four, many people may not be able to figure this out, but you can see a perceptible change in the sacrifices that a player undergoes. You can gradually see the changes which can be evident over a period of time in an individual who takes up active sport. So that individual may let go some of his social outings, may let go some of his holidays, because he is busy either playing or is busy either preparing. That's the kind of perceptible change you can notice in an individual who takes up this sport. So there are many more tangible benefits, but let me go to the more important and the life lesson, which are kind of intangibles. And I'll cite you some more examples of the experience I've had with while playing with some of the stalwarts of this game. But number one is decision making. That's one thing which sport teaches you. And I'm again sticking to the specific of cricket. For instance, if you're a captain of the side, right from the point of time when the match starts, you have to be very quick in your decision making. In terms of toss, what do you do when you win the toss? Do you want to bat first? Do you want to field first? If you have to bat first, even before the game begins, the playing 11, that is again decision making that depends on the captain or the coach for that matter. And once the game begins, there are a number of sessions, number of phases where you need to think on your toes. You also need to be extremely flexible. So quick decision making is one kind of a strong attitude which you develop when you take up any sport for that matter, and more so in cricket, because it allows you to think quickly in so many different ways and so quickly. Number two is I'll give you an example of my experience with Mr. Sachin Tendulkar, one of the most, arguably the best, cricketer the planet has seen so far. And I was fortunate to play with him. I've seen him from a young side, from a very young age. In fact, before he made his debut, we played together in an Irani Trophy match in Mumbai long time back. I think it was 1989, and he scored a brilliant 100, and that is how he got picked up for the tour to Pakistan in 1988-89. But after that, when I made my debut for India, which was 1997, he was the captain of the side. And if any of you have had the opportunity of watching that series that took place in South Africa, 96-97, India in the first test match at Durban, India were bowled out for about 60 odd in the second inning. Sachin Tendulkar being the captain, there was so much of pressure on him. He failed in both the innings. And the next test match was to be played at Cape Town. And we had a 4 to 5 day gap between the first test match at Durban and the second test match that was scheduled to start at Cape Town. He had a look at some of his batting videos, and he felt that he wasn't able to adjust to the bounce, to adjust to the speed of the delivery that was being thrown at him from a very strong South African pace bowling attack. So he was trying to find a way how to cope with that. And because I was not playing in the 11, I was in the 15, but not in the 11, and I watched the entire game. So he had a discussion with the coach, wasn't very convinced. He had a discussion with some of his colleagues, wasn't very, very convinced as to the kind of changes he would like to bring in. in his batting so that he's able to encounter the South African pace bowling attack. So he came up to me, he said, since you were sitting outside and you're watching the game, what do you think? And I told him that, I felt that he was being beaten by pace, which is the speed of the delivery he was not able to cope with. And to cope with that, to encounter that, it is very important that you need to shuffle a little bit. In cricket language, it's called, you get into a position before the ball is delivered. So you get into a very balanced position so that you're able to play very well, and that allows you to manage the speed of the deliveries. He said, okay, let me try it out in the nets. So he did that. And then he came up to me, he said, that is a wonderful suggestion. Let me try this out in the next test match. And he went and he played the next test match at Cape Town and got a brilliant 100. So the reason why I brought this instance is while playing sport, you learn from all quarters. That really broadens your horizon. You're not kind of narrow-minded in terms of your vision, in terms of your approach. So you're able to absorb from so many quarters. You learn from all quarters, and that's what sport teaches you. Number 3, and this is a big point, is it teaches you social equality, especially team sport, because while you're playing sport, you play with people of different backgrounds, different cultures, different religion, different caste. One does not even know, whether your colleague comes from what kind of a background, because those things are immaterial. Those things does not have any relevance at all. So it teaches you social equality unknowingly also at times. But as you grow up, you realize these are the traits which you learn, while playing the sport, and it stays with you till the end of your life. So these are, the first one I talked about was decision making. The second is you learn from all quarters. Third is social equality, and fourth, very important, is the trust factor. So when you step onto the playing arena, you learn to trust your colleagues. That is how you grow as an individual. That is how you grow as a player. And these are life lessons which I don't think you can ever dream of learning even in a classroom. So trust factor helps you, you and your team, to achieve success on the field. And trusting your colleague is one important step towards achieving your goal, or towards helping your team to achieve their respective goals, or allowing or helping your colleagues to achieve their ambition or their goals. So this is another major point I had in mind. Another one that comes to my mind is communication, and I'll give you another example on this. And this happened with me. So we were playing a one-day match in West Indies. This was 97-98 series. And we had a great amalgamation of cricketers from various backgrounds. For instance, I was from Bihar. Sachin Tendulkar was the captain from Maharashtra. Rahul Dravid from Bangalore. We had Venkatesh Prasad from Bangalore. We also had Robin Singh, a Trinidadian who had migrated to India and was playing for India then. So we had people from multiple backgrounds. And I was the wicket keeper, and it so happened that one of the West Indian batter, now I don't remember that name. He tried to hook a delivery, got a thick outside edge, or the top edge of the bat. The ball lobbed in the air. It went towards short fine leg. So it had, as soon as the catch went up, so I ran after the ball because it was in my vicinity. I was the wicket keeper. Robin Singh, who was fielding at short fine leg, he also ran towards the ball. And Venkatesh Prasad, who was standing at short mid wicket, he also ran towards the ball. Now I say this because it was like a hilarious incident. Later on, when I saw it on video, I could only manage a smile. But when it happened, it felt pretty awful on the field. So you had Robin Singh. He had a very peculiar accent, which is Trinidadian English, and very few of us could understand. So he was shouting in his own accent as to leave it for me, I will take it. I was yelling in my so-called proper English, or whatever I had in my mind then, no, leave it is my catch. And then Venkatesh Prasad was shouting in Kannada, because he was very fluent in Kannada. So all three of us had different kind of accent, different languages, and we were all trying to converge at the ball. And as a result, none of us went for the catch, and the catch dropped in the middle of the three of us. So it was such an embarrassing moment, but it taught us so much that if you have proper communication, you'll never be stranded. And I think that's another area where, or another point that sports really teaches you. So have great communication skills. So while you're playing any sport for that matter, in even an individual sport, you need to have that kind of communication. If you recall the tennis matches being played these days, although it is an individual sport, the tennis player is always in touch with his coaching staff who are sitting in the stand. So there is some kind of a communication, although it may not be verbal, but at least there are some glances, there are some sign languages. That's how they learn. In cricket, it is far more evident because while you're batting, you need to have that communication with the player. If you're fielding, you need to have that kind of communication with your colleagues. Even during overs, you need to have the conversation with your captain or with your fielders while you're bowling, how to bowl, where to bowl. So communication comes very naturally to you when you take up the sport, and it really helps you even once your career is over, because that is one skill which is required in all the fields. Also, want to bring in about this entire thing of pressure. After my career got over, I was even while I was playing, I was working for Tata Steel. It is one of those few organizations, the private bodies in India that really promote sports in a big way. And I was very fortunate to have worked for Tata Steel. It gave me enough opportunity to learn about corporate culture, because I worked in administration, I worked in procurement, I worked in corporate communications, and I realized that whatever I have learned from my cricketing days, all that came in so handy to me when I actually started to work on a regular basis once my career got over. Because the points I've mentioned before this, all that came in very handy. And more importantly, how to absorb pressure. That's another thing which I learned while playing cricket, because you learn to play with pressure, you learn to absorb pressure, you learn to convert pressure into challenges, and you learn to enjoy pressure, because it becomes a habit when you step onto the field, that you will have to encounter pressure, and you'll have to find ways to cope with it and to overcome it, so that you're able to succeed. You may fail, but that again helps you to understand the nuances of the game, and to understand your own skill, and to understand your own ability, so that you're able to overcome that. And next time when you go onto the field, you don't repeat a similar mistake. And it came in very handy when I really started to work for Tata Steel. Another instance which I would like to cite here is about Rahul Dravid and VVS Laxman. Both of them great friends of mine. We started playing cricket, the cricket career with the Indian side together. But they managed to, and great for Indian cricket, they managed to achieve great heights. But I remember one such occasion, and I'm sure if anyone of you is interested in Test cricket, you'll recall that epic Test match that took place in Calcutta. I think it was 2000, when India came back from behind after being asked to follow on by Australia. They came back and they had a splendid partnership. So VVS, and I was based in Calcutta then. So VVS and Rahul Dravid, before they staged that partnership, I'd invited them over to my house for dinner. And by then it was kind of a foregone conclusion that Australia will win that Test match, because they had such a strong hold in that Test match. So VVS and Rahul, they came and they had dinner at my place, and we were having a general conversation. So, when three friends get together who have played cricket together, normally you talk about the game. And I asked them, so how do you feel, guys? I mean, how does it look like? I said, well, the picture is very bleak, but you know what? And this is quote unquote from Rahul Dravid, who says, but you know what, Sabha, I believe in the unbelievable. I said, meaning what? I said, I really sincerely feel that we can turn this around. I said, hey, you must be joking. I mean, such a strong Australian side. How on earth can you recover from here and manage to win the game? He says, I'm not only talking about winning this Test match, I'm also talking about winning the series, because tomorrow if you bat well, then there's a strong chance that we can come back. And such strong belief, I was kind of taken aback, and I never thought that will happen. But next day is something which is so riveting, because both of them went out and played a knock which I don't think can ever be repeated. They remain unbeaten the entire day. India managed to get some lead. Australia came back and they had to score some runs in the fourth innings. They somehow couldn't do so, and eventually India won that Kolkata Test match. And the third Test match was played at Chennai, and India won that Test series after winning the third Test match 2-1. So this is what sport teaches you. It teaches you that you have to believe. I would not term it as miracle, but believe in your own ability so that you can turn it around. And that's what actually cricket or any sport teaches you. And these are again life lessons which help you win after your career is over. Another point we're talking about, I would like to stress on is team bonding and team building exercises, which normally I see most of the corporates do. Or I see these exercises that take place when the so-called corporates or business organizations, they try and conduct in their offices, and it is also always about team bonding. This is something which comes natural for a player, because that's what he learns when he grows up. You possibly cannot achieve anything without your team spirit or without your team bonding. So that's another aspect which is so important for an individual, and you learn so much from this. And I remember another incident, and I think it was Saurav Ganguly who said this when India went to Australia a long time back, and we did manage to win a Test match. He said, when we step onto the field, or we either win as one or we lose at 11. And I think it teaches us a lot, and that's what team sport teaches us. So in order to win, you have to play like one, or invariably when you lose is because individuals are playing a separate game altogether, and there is no team spirit and there's no team bonding. That is why eventually you lose. So these are some of the intangibles. You possibly can't measure them, but you can see this kind of a change that takes place in the so-called mind space of a player, and he gets into a mindset that helps him to absorb all these points that I have mentioned. Another point I would like to make here is, because all of you are head of your respective schools, is while I was growing up in my school in St. Xavier's, I had this. I was so fortunate. I had this privilege of utilizing some of the other sports facilities. So we had cricket, we had football, we had a swimming pool, we had a gym bar there. And although the premises of St. Xavier wasn't very big, but the school tried its level best to offer so many different, sporting discipline. And while playing cricket, I was extremely lucky that I could utilize that I could get into swimming. I could also do a little bit of gymming, and running. In any case, was so natural. And all these three sports really helped me to become a better player. And now I look back and I see that at a very young stage, it is very important for a youngster to take up these three mother sports. The three mother sports are: number one is running, number two is swimming, and number three is gymming. So whatever you may have in your school, please try and see to it that you have at least these 3 or 4 discipline or facilities in your school, which allows youngsters to take up all these three mother sports. That helps that player to choose, if he wants to become serious, if he wants to become active, to choose that particular sport. So if you have a base strong while you are at a young age, if you have a base strong for gymming, for swimming and running, then it allows you to become better sports person in whatever given sport you choose as you grow in your life. So these are the areas I wanted to touch on. I hope all of you can understand the points which I have raised, and I sincerely hope that being principals of your respective schools, you will allow more and more players or more and more youngsters to take up active sports. There's another point I wanted to raise here is that the attention span of youngsters is very limited. There'll be a number of occasions where a youngster may take up one sport, maybe football, for 2 to 3 months. He may get bored with that sport and want to shift, which is very natural. So whenever you prepare some kind of a curriculum, sports curriculum in your school, keep these options open. You may give a student 2 to 3 months of cricket, 2 to 3 months of football, 2 to 3 months of basketball, 2 to 3 months of swimming, or whatever that person that player may want. Because as I said, the attention span of youngsters is quite limited. So if you allow them to take up different sports, all that will really help him to grow as an individual, in addition to being a good athlete. So these are some of the nuances I thought I'll touch on. And that's it from my side. Thank you so much for the invite. I've had a wonderful time chatting with all of you. Well, the chat may start now, but that's it from my side. And I thought I'll bring you some instances or some of my experiences that may be beneficial for the students.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. It was indeed a wonderful session, and I would again like to thank you for giving the audience a peek into your own childhood story of getting introduced to the world of cricket, and for sharing such first-hand experiences, and of course talking about the tangible and intangible benefits of cricket, and for truly displaying the spirit of a true sportsman. So once again, on behalf of the audience and everybody present here, I would like to thank you for your time. Thank you so much for your words, sir. Thank you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much, and have a great year ahead. Stay safe, stay masked, and I hope all your students imbibe the right kind of spirit. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, moving ahead, I would now request Dr. Joseph Emmanuel, Director Academics, CBSE, to please present the recommendations and resolutions of the conference. Over to you, sir.
Esteemed dignitaries and all the participants, the 27th CBSE Annual National Sahodaya Conference is coming to its finality. And the discussions over the past 2 days have centered on connecting the past with the future and advancing educational equity in our schools. CBSE and all of us have received a lot of insights from the conversations we have had during the sessions held at the conference. So the conference has made 10 resolutions which needs to be adopted by all the CBSE affiliated schools in the coming academic session. So these resolutions I will read out, and you can also go through the resolutions on screen. The recommendations and resolutions of the 27th CBSE National Conference of Sahodaya School Complexes, Gwalior. Schools will endeavor to promote scientific temper by including inquiry-based learning opportunities in the pedagogical plans. Schools will optimize technology for gamification of learning to promote clear concept formation and innovative mindsets. Third, schools will integrate liberal arts like art, drama, and music in the pedagogy to promote clear mind mapping. Fourth, special focus will be laid on mental well-being. Schools will promote sensitization towards climate change through student agency. Joyful learning will be promoted by usage of storytelling tools, especially from Indian heritage. Awareness of India's rich heritage will be promoted by a scientific understanding of our past to impact the future. Next, the ideal of a healthy mind in a healthy body will be pursued through practice of yoga and mindfulness. Special focus will be laid on mental well-being of school communities, especially in light of the pandemic. Next, the schools will work towards integrating India through Bhasha Sangam and Ek Bharat Shrestha Bharat activities. In this 75th year of Indian independence, school communities will dedicate themselves to the rich values for which our freedom fighters sacrificed their lives. These are the 10 recommendations, and the final resolution is schools will develop capacities to make learning relevant and joyful for achieving the aim of creating employability and enterprise. Schools will encourage students to become future ready by augmenting learning through inquiry-based learning opportunities. Universal values of integrity and empathy will be encouraged through practices like yoga and mindfulness. Thank you. So these recommendations and resolutions will be shared with all the participants and all the affiliated schools of CBSE. And the report of the conference and all the materials the participants and the affiliated schools can view on the website of CBSE as well as the website of the Sahodaya School Complex, Gwalior. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now arrived at the final segment of the 27th National Conference of Sahodaya School Complexes, and we will now begin the valedictory session, where we have the proud privilege and honor of having His Excellency Mangubhai Patel, Honorable Governor of Madhya Pradesh, join us. We will begin the session shortly. I request you all to join us for the valedictory session now. Thank you.